Today's video is all about doing a folded over brim for a double thick, super warm brim to a hat. I'm going to show you how to do this folded over brim without using the provisional cast on. So let's take a look. Hello, this is Jacqueline from Jack Knits, and today we're going to talk about how to do a folded over brim, making for a double thick brim for a hat. Now you can use the same technique for a cuff of a mitten as well, but I'm going to demonstrate on this hat. Now a few videos back I showed you how to do this when you do the provisional cast on, and the provisional cast on allows live stitches to remain active on your cast on edge, so you can easily fold your brim over and knit your working stitches together with those live stitches from the cast on edge. It's a great way to do a folded over brim because you've got those live stitches. It's so easily to knit those two together. But you do have to remember to do the provisional cast on at the start. So what if you started knitting your hat, your cast on with a long-term cast on, you started doing a 1x1 ribbing, and then later you decide, I would really love to do a folded over brim, but I did not do a provisional cast on. Can I still do that? And of course, the answer is yes. We can still do a folded over brim. We just have to know which stitches to pick up when we fold it over. We don't have live stitches, but that's okay. We could still pick up stitches from that cast on edge and knit them together with our live stitches up here. So let's take a look at how we're going to do this. I already began knitting this hat, and I knitted several rows of a 1x1 ribbing. I did it twice as long as the brim of my hat is going to be. So obviously this is several inches, and I want the brim to be about this wide. So once you get to that point where you're ready to fold over your brim, let's tuck that in here. So we've got it all folded over in the inside of our round needles. Now the trick with doing this is that you have to kind of come up with a plan on which stitches on your cast on edge you want to pick up and knit together with your working stitches. You want to make sure that you are knitting together a 1x1 correlation of stitches all the way around, so you don't end up with too many stitches left on your cast on or too many stitches left on your working needle when you get to the end of the round. So you just have to kind of come up with a plan of action and determine which stitches you're going to pick up. Here is the end of my working round that I'm working on, and here is the start of my cast on edge because it's got the tail from there. So I know that that's where I need to start. So kind of line those stitches up. Here's my first stitch of my working row, and I'm going to line that up with this first purl row from the back side of my ribbing here. So I want to pick up the row of stitches on the very back side of my cast on edge. Let me take a needle so we can show. And the very top of this row has this loop right here. So this is actually going to be the very first stitch I'm going to pick up with my first stitch on my needle and knit those two together. Then you see my knit row here peaks at the top with this stitch right next to it. So that will be my second one. My purl row at the very top has this little stitch here. I will pick that one up. Again, my knitted row with this. So you can kind of visually see which stitch at the top of each of my ribbing rows am I going to pick up when I knit, and that will assure that you've got the right number of stitches to be picked up, and it will end up evenly at the end. So let's get started by knitting this stitch together with this one. So I will knit this stitch, so make sure you insert your needle in your working yarn stitch first, and then grab that stitch that we identified from our cast on edge, which is this one right here. Make sure you are grabbing your working yarn, not that tail, and we're going to just knit that through that picked up stitch and through your working needle. So you're kind of knitting those two together, okay? Now let's do that again with our next stitch. And now you can kind of see, remember we were going to pick up this stitch at the top of this row right there. So that's the next stitch we were going to pick up. right there, knit that through, and knit it through the front one. All right, now we'll do the same with that third stitch. Knit the working stitch and identify the stitch at the top of this purl row, which is this loop right here. It's the very next loop. Knit that together, knit that one through, and then knit it through your working. All right, next stitch is now going to be on top of that next row, the knit row, this right there, and knit through that working needle. All right, you're starting to kind of see the pattern here. Next stitch, the very next stitch at the top. And now I am connecting those two, the cast on and my working stitches, by knitting those two stitches together. We're going to continue that all the way around, and then we can continue on with a regular hat with a regular pattern, but we've got that extra thick brim. So let me show you how this looks like when I get all the way down around the circle. So I've completed knitting that round where I've knitted my working stitches along with every single stitch of my cast on edge, and it all came out nice and evenly. Didn't have any extra stitches at the end, so that's what the goal is just to make sure that you've got that one by one stitch pickup and knitting those two together. So now I've got a nice double thick folded over brim. I'm going to continue now just knitting my hat according to my hat pattern in whatever stitches that it calls for. So I hope you found this helpful, the folded over brim. If you did, please don't forget to subscribe and you'll receive notifications each week of new videos all about knitting tips and techniques, fun new stitches, and creative patterns. So happy knitting, everyone. Thanks for watching.